Alison McGovern.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. And can I begin by congratulating the Honourable Member for Skipton and Ripon on his maiden speech. It was a fine speech indeed. And as a railwayman's daughter, my recollections of being forced to suffer the Settle to Carlisle Railway as a holiday, as a small child, still with me. It's an extremely beautiful part of the country, and I would like to congratulate him on an excellent maiden speech. I want to welcome many of the measures in this bill, as has been previously commented on before. Many of those measures are ones that will receive cross-party support. They were ones that were due from the previous government's budget in March. In fact, I think that a good, effective tax system, well-resourced, is the mark of an excellent democracy. And so I feel that it's important that we as Members of Parliament take care about the well-functioning of our tax system. So I want to say something this evening about tax and tax collection, and also to raise two vital points where I feel this government has missed an opportunity to implement change that could benefit our economy at this very difficult time. But first, to turn to Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, HMRC. Members may not be aware that many employees of HMRC work in Liverpool, Wirral and Merseyside and the Liverpool travel to work area. Many of these staff now work for HMRC in my area due to government work being shifted to areas where wages are lower and it's more effective to have government staff. And the work of these staff often goes largely uncommented on, especially in this place, even if it's good, high-quality work. We often talk about public servants, but I think few of us ever think to congratulate those working to make sure that our tax system works very well. And that's part of what I want to do today. In fact, I hope the House will permit me to share that one of my first experiences as a newly elected Member of Parliament was when some members of staff from HMRC came to see me in my newly opened constituency office. They were very fearful of changes that the new government looked like they might implement, and they wanted to raise with me some of their concerns, particularly about resources that might be available in the future. In fact, it's been previously mentioned that in recent times, over the past 3 years, they have increased yield from interventions by 60%. That's a good record, and I think all of us in this House want to see this. We legislate here, we debate, we discuss, we pass bills, they become acts, they become law. But actually, that's all just words. We are dependent on the good words, the good work of HMRC to make real our choices and decisions. So I think we shouldn't treat these staff with scant regard. We should take seriously the problems they may have. And in fact, my experience of meeting with and speaking to HMRC staff has revealed that, like many in the public sector at the present time, they're operating under a cloud of uncertainty. So I would appeal to ministers to, as much as they can, act with transparency, to keep in consultation with staff at all time, and to particularly pay attention to whether or not HMRC has sufficient resources to act out the consequences of choices they make. The child benefit changes, again, may add further work burdens onto HMRC staff. And I think we as politicians here owe it to those staff to make sure that they absolutely have enough resources to act out the consequences of our decisions. Secondly, I wanted to come to a couple of missed opportunities that I feel that the government have let pass by in this bill. One of the main features of the budget that concerned me greatly was the VAT rise up to 20%. And in fact, I believe Grant Thornton have estimated that that increase will cost individual households around £500 a year. there is sincere concern amongst many about the harm that this could do to our economy. I see in my own area in Wirral that the recovery is fragile. I'm very grateful to the intervention of Deloitte for their putting on record where business and consumer concern is. However, I know from speaking to people in my constituency that business confidence is still fragile, and I worry what that increase in January is going to do. I worry what that increase in the cost that shopping baskets are to families will do in January, and I worry that many small businesses in my own constituency will face a tougher time after Christmas than they have done in the past 12 months because of that VAT rise. Now, let's be clear, we have every indication that this is a permanent rise. It's a permanent shift in who pays what tax. And we debated earlier the contrast with Labour's temporary VAT reduction. Now, I remember very well the restaurants in my area putting out temporary notices, amending their menus. It was very clear to everybody that this was part of the stimulus, part of the government's work to get us through that time. This is not the case with the current VAT rise. It's a totally different thing. It's a regressive increase in who pays tax. I absolutely believe that we must, over time, seek to reduce the deficit, but I don't feel that this is the way to do it. In fact, it hasn't been mentioned so far, the impact that a lower tax take has had on that deficit that we face. And I think that we need to recognise that part of that lower tax take has come from unemployment that has been caused by the global downturn. What we need is to make strategic investment in this country in the things that we have a competitive advantage in high-tech areas, so that we can increase employment and bring the budget back towards balance. I think that's the way to do it, not to introduce a permanent shift in who pays tax in this country that will hit families in my area harder than many. In fact, it will hit families harder in my area in Wirral than those down the road who live in Cheshire in the Chancellor's constituency. The second point that I want to mention builds upon some of the debate that we've already had this evening on businesses of all sizes, but I'm specifically thinking of small to medium-sized businesses in my constituency that I've met with recently. In fact, one of the things that I've been doing since I was elected in May is speaking to many of the businesses in my area, which members may not know, specifically are science-led. We have an excellent part of the knowledge economy in my constituency. We have many high-tech businesses that supply the electronics industry in Korea and other places. We have Unilever, which does high-end research. Unilever's Research and Development Lab in my constituency has over 200 PhDs, and there are many feeder businesses to that science high-tech industry. So investment allowances are no small fry to us. And in 2 cases recently, I have been called in to go and meet a business that is about to move jobs out of my constituency. And in both of those cases, after having analysed the situation, it seems that capital investment in new technology could have stopped this. It was the motivating factor for the removal of those jobs is the lack of capital investment. And I want to see the government pay great attention to what more they can do to incentivise business to make capital investment in our country. It's the thing that will make our economy sustainable for the long run. I contrast this with the corporation tax that helps big business, already in profit, to keep their profits. Corporation tax, a corporation tax cut across the board, does nothing to incentivise business to make capital investment. Only this morning I was speaking to a business in my constituency, and I asked them what was the one thing that I could tell the government that would assist them to invest for the long term, and they said, help us make those investments, introduce more allowances that enable that investment, which will help and protect our employment for the long term. So I think this, I will, of course.
I'm most grateful to the Honourable Lady for giving way. Just on the matter of lower corporation tax, would you not agree that by having a competitive corporation tax will actually attract international investment into this country and develop jobs for our economy, but by bringing it up, we must play on the global stage, not just within Britain itself?
Alison McGovern.
And we do have competitive corporation tax. He's right that we must play on the global stage. He's absolutely right about that. And in fact, many of the companies that I'm talking about in my constituency do play on the global stage. And in fact, what I've seen is the difference that other countries have made in working with business to ensure that they invest in their technology, which keeps them here for the long term. If you think about the difference historically in the German automotive industry, for example, where that government did just that, and where we came very late as a country to that approach, to that industrial activism and to that investment in high-tech industry, that meant that we secured employment for the long term. Now, I would ask ministers to think about what their role in this is, because it's absolutely the case that when you're dealing with global companies, the government needs to be discussing with them all the time what the changes in their industry are and what the next move needs to be in terms of investment. I don't feel that an across-the-board corporation tax that hands profits back without any discussion about what's done with them is the way forward. I will do.
Does not the Honourable Lady note with concern that the high rate of corporation tax, relatively speaking, that the UK has caused a whole load of British companies to leave the UK, thus destroying jobs and money?
Alison McGovern.
Well, I just factually disagree that we've had an overly high corporation tax, and I disagree that we haven't had inward investment. I mean, I would invite him to come with me to Vauxhall Motors or Unilever's in my constituency, where they've just invested millions of pounds in high-tech kit that means that research will go on in this country for the long term. I just factually disagree with him that I don't think that's the case. I don't think that is what's happening, actually. It's at risk of happening in the future unless the government shows an active approach to working with business to make sure that they have the right incentives to stay and invest in Britain. So, in conclusion, I really have 3 points for the government to take account of. I would ask that they really do look on an ongoing basis at the effectiveness of HMRC, whether or not the resource allocated is enough to bring in the taxes that we need to do so to bring in the budget back further towards balance. I would question what more they can do to promote real growth and the rebalancing of our economy. I worry about the effect of the VAT rise on those people least able to cope with it, and that is going to yet again distort the economy we have in Britain. I mean, actually, if you look at the economy in Britain, it operates very differently in different geographical areas. And I don't mean to point out a north-south divide, actually. Here, areas of the south-west are likely to suffer similarly, and I think that we really need to be quite careful at this important time. There is much that can be done to work with business and assist them in making investment, and I hope that the government will consider that as we go forward with this bill.
Richard Harrington.